The sun cast a golden glow over our suburban Chicago home, where I had built a beautiful life with James, the love of my life. At 38, I was thriving in the real estate business, closing deals left and right, while James, a top surgeon, dedicated his days to saving lives. But beyond our professional successes, our greatest joy was our family, his children, Emma and Ethan, from his first marriage. Being a stepmother had its challenges, but I embraced them wholeheartedly. Our house was filled with laughter, love, and the warmth of a family that, though not bound by blood, was connected by something even stronger. But then there was Mark, James's brother. Mark, who always had another grand business idea that never quite worked out. Mark, whose eyes carried an unspoken resentment whenever he was around James. And Mark who, at last Thanksgiving, had uttered the words that still clung to me like a shadow. That evening, as I was in the kitchen making my famous apple pie, I overheard him sneer, "How's playing house with the real estate agent?" My hands, dusted with cinnamon and flour, froze mid-motion. James, ever patient, simply laughed. "Come on, Mark. Olivia is amazing with the kids. We're happy." Mark scoffed. "Sure. But she's not their real mom, is she? How could she be?" The words felt like a slap, but I swallowed my anger, forced a smile, and carried the pie out as if nothing had happened. Later that night, as I helped Emma with her math homework, Mark swaggered over with a smirk. "Trying to win them over with homework help, stepmom Olivia?" I met his gaze, steady and unflinching. "Family isn't about blood, Mark. It's about love." Emma squeezed my hand beneath the table, silent but unwavering in her support. It was moments like that, quiet affirmations of the bond we shared, that reminded me of what truly mattered. Not all of life was drama. There were still the simple, beautiful moments. James and I curled up on the couch after the kids had gone to bed, his hand warm in mine. But one night, the peace was broken when he sat me down, his expression unusually solemn. "Liv, I need to tell you something." His voice was calm, but there was something heavy in it. "The doctor found a little issue with my heart." My own heart clenched. "Is it serious?" "It's manageable with medication. But it made me think, I should update my will. Just to make sure you and the kids are taken care of." I wanted to tell him he'd be fine, that we had a lifetime ahead of us. But deep down, I knew he was right. So I nodded, blinking back tears. "We'll face whatever comes together." That night, as I lay awake listening to the familiar sounds of our home, Ethan's laughter drifting down the hall as James told him a bedtime story, the soft hum of Emma's music, I reminded myself that we were a family. No matter what life threw at us, we had each other. Then came the day that shattered everything. It was just another Tuesday morning. I was pouring my second cup of coffee when the phone rang. The voice on the other end was urgent, unfamiliar. "There's been an emergency. Your husband collapsed at work." By the time I reached the hospital, it was too late. James was gone. Just like that. The man who had been my rock, my partner, my love, ripped away in an instant. The weeks that followed blurred into a haze of grief, casseroles left at our doorstep, and tear-streaked nights where Emma and Ethan clung to me as I clung to them. We were lost, trying to navigate a world that no longer felt whole. And then came the reading of the will. I sat in numb silence as the lawyer spoke, barely registering the words, until Mark's voice cut through the room like a blade. "What do you mean she gets an equal share? She's not even family." I blinked, slowly focusing on his furious expression. "James wanted to take care of all three of us," I said quietly. "This is ridiculous. You manipulated him. Those aren't even your real kids." A hush fell over the room. The lawyer attempted to intervene, but Mark wasn't finished. "You're nothing but a gold digger," he spat. "You didn't love James. You just wanted his money." Beside me, Emma trembled. And that's when something in me snapped. "That's enough, Mark," I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning inside me. "This is what James wanted. End of discussion." But it wasn't the end. In the following weeks, the whispers followed me. Family members who had once welcomed me now cast suspicious glances, their conversations halting when I entered a room. And then, at a family dinner, James's cousin Linda pulled me aside, her expression hesitant. "Olivia, I think you should know, Mark's been saying some things." My stomach tightened as she continued, her words confirming my worst fears. "According to Mark, I had seduced James for his money, never cared about the kids, and had probably been unfaithful before he died. The accusations made me feel physically ill. But the worst was yet to come. The night of Emma's choir performance, as I was helping her with her hair, my phone buzzed. A text from an uncle. "Mark is here. He looks mad." Alarmed, I rushed downstairs. Mark stood in my living room, reeking of alcohol. "There she is," he slurred, eyes glassy with rage. "The little homewrecker." "Mark, you're drunk." "Go home," I said, forcing my voice to remain calm. "Not until you admit what you did. You stole my brother's money." At the top of the stairs, Emma appeared, her face pale. "Mom? What's going on?" Mark turned on her, his voice sharp. "She's not your mom. Your real mom is dead, and this woman is trying to steal your inheritance." Emma gasped, her eyes filling with tears before she ran back to her room. I saw red. "Get out of my house. Now." Mark sneered. "Or what? You gonna call the cops?" "Go ahead. I'll tell them how you manipulated my brother." Just then, Ethan stepped forward, his phone in his hand. "I already called them, Uncle Mark. They're on their way." Mark's face paled. He stumbled toward the door, throwing one last bitter insult over his shoulder. "This isn't over, Olivia." As the door slammed, I sank onto the stairs, my head in my hands. Ethan sat beside me, his young face filled with concern. "Mom, are you okay?" I looked at him, then at Emma, who peeked down from the stairs, her face streaked with tears. In that moment, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: these were my children. And I would move heaven and earth to protect them. I took a deep breath, my resolve hardening. "I'm okay, sweetheart. And we're going to be okay. I promise." But Mark had been right about one thing. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. A few days later, I sat across from Mike, the private investigator. My stomach churned as he slid a folder toward me. "You were right to be suspicious, Mrs. Thompson," he said grimly. "Your brother-in-law's been busy." I opened the folder, my eyes widening as I scanned the contents: embezzlement, gambling debts, loans taken out in James's name. Mike nodded. "Mark's in deep. And he's desperate for that inheritance to cover his tracks." A cold determination settled over me. Mark had started this war. Now, it was time to finish it. I felt sick as I stared at the folder in front of me. My fingers trembled slightly as I closed it, looking up at Mike, the private investigator who had just unraveled the truth. "Thank you, Mike," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. He gave me a nod, his expression filled with understanding. "This changes everything." Later that day, I sat across from my lawyer, Sandra, in her sleek office, my mind still reeling. "Can Mark contest the will?" I asked, gripping the arms of my chair. Sandra exhaled, folding her hands on the desk. "Not successfully. James was of sound mind when he made his decisions, and his wishes are crystal clear. But be prepared, Mark will probably try anyway." As I drove home, my thoughts raced. The truth was on my side now, but at what cost? Would this battle ever end, or would Mark's bitterness continue to poison our lives? When I stepped into the house, I found Emma and Ethan sitting on the couch, their faces tight with worry. My heart clenched. "Hey kids. Everything okay?" I asked gently. Emma bit her lip, exchanging a glance with Ethan before speaking. "Mom, Uncle Mark called us." A cold dread settled in my chest. "What did he say?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "He said you were lying about Dad's will. That you're trying to steal our inheritance." I sat down heavily, overwhelmed by the cruelty of it all. Emma reached for my hand, her grip firm. "We didn't believe him, Mom. We know Dad would never do that." Tears burned behind my eyes. Their trust, their unwavering belief in me, it was everything. "Thank you for telling me. And thank you for trusting me." We hugged, and in that moment, I realized how much we had grown together. The children I once feared might never accept me now stood firmly by my side. The next day, I took them to their first therapy session with Dr. Rodriguez, a kind woman with warm eyes who welcomed us into her office. "How are you both feeling about everything?" she asked gently. Emma shrugged. "Sad. Angry. I miss Dad, but I'm glad we have Mom." Ethan nodded in agreement. "Yeah. Uncle Mark's being a jerk, but Mom's always there for us." I squeezed their hands, my heart swelling with love. We were healing, step by step. Over the following weeks, we leaned into the small joys of life. Game nights, movie marathons, long talks over hot chocolate. Little by little, the laughter returned to our home. Then one evening, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Mark standing there, looking gaunt and desperate. "We need to talk, Olivia," he muttered. I stepped outside, shutting the door behind me. "I know everything, Mark. The embezzlement. The loans in James's name. It's over." His face drained of color. You can't prove anything." "I have enough proof to send you to prison," I said firmly. Panic flickered across his face before he lunged forward, his fingers digging into my arm. You'll ruin everything," he hissed. Suddenly, the front door flew open. Emma and Ethan stood there, phones in hand. "Let go of our mom," Ethan said, his voice shaking but resolute. Emma held up her phone, her eyes blazing. "We recorded everything. Touch her again, and we'll call the cops." Mark froze. His grip loosened as he stumbled back, realization dawning on his face. "You're choosing her over family," he spat. Emma lifted her chin. "She is our family." Mark's shoulders sagged as he turned and walked away, but his parting words sent a chill down my spine. "This isn't over, Olivia." I turned to my children, overwhelmed with pride. "You didn't have to do that," I said softly. Ethan shrugged. "Yeah, we did. You're our mom. We protect each other." Emma nodded. "That's what family does." I pulled them into a fierce hug, marveling at how, in the midst of pain and betrayal, we had forged something unbreakable. That night, as I lay in bed, I knew the battle wasn't over. Mark wouldn't give up easily. But for the first time since James died, I felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever came next, we would face it together. The annual Thompson family barbecue, a once joyous occasion, was now a minefield of tension. Standing in Aunt Martha's backyard, I clutched the folder in my hands, its weight a shield against the storm I was about to unleash. It was time to put an end to this. I found Mark standing near the garage, his expression darkening as I approached. "We need to talk." "Privately," I said, nodding toward the open garage door. Once inside, I laid the evidence before him, watching his face turn from red to white to green. "You have two choices," I said calmly. "Back off and get help, or I go public." His eyes darted around like a trapped animal. "You wouldn't dare," he growled. I met his gaze, unwavering. "Try me." With a snarl, he snapped. His fist flew before I could react, pain exploding across my jaw as I stumbled back, tasting blood. "Dad." Tyler's voice rang out, sharp with horror. I turned to see Mark's son standing in the doorway, his face pale with shock. Within seconds, the garage filled, Sarah, Emma, Ethan, Aunt Martha. The truth was laid bare before them all. Sarah's voice cut through the chaos, shaking with fury. "That's it, Mark. We're done." The wail of sirens split the air. Moments later, the police arrived, leading Mark away in handcuffs. The shock on everyone's faces told me that, finally, the truth had come to light. There was no going back. Months passed, and Mark's trial became a media spectacle. Embezzlement. Fraud. Assault. The verdict was swift, 15 years in prison. Through it all, Emma, Ethan, and I clung to one another. We cried, we laughed, we healed. One evening, over dinner, Emma cleared her throat. "Mom, we've been thinking." Ethan jumped in. "We want you to adopt us. Legally." I nearly choked on my pasta. "Are you sure?" They nodded, their eyes shining. "Dad would want this," Emma said softly. Tears welled up as I pulled them into my arms, laughing and crying at the same time. In honor of James, we used part of the inheritance to establish the James Thompson Foundation for Blended Families, a way to help others navigate the same stormy waters we had survived. Tyler and Mia became frequent visitors, their family broken by Mark's downfall but rebuilt in the warmth of ours. And today, we stood at James's grave, the autumn air crisp around us. Leaves crunched under our feet as Emma knelt to lay a bouquet of white roses against the stone. "Hey, Dad." "We miss you," she whispered. Ethan grinned. "Remember when you tried to teach us to fish and fell into the lake?" We laughed, the sound echoing through the quiet cemetery. As we walked back to the car, I looked at my children, strong, compassionate, resilient. They had faced loss and betrayal and had come out shining. "Ice cream," I suggested, grinning. "Race you to the car." Ethan bolted, Emma close behind, their laughter ringing in the air. Sliding into the driver's seat, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back at me was stronger, wiser, and more whole than she had ever been. "Thanks, James," I whispered. "I'll take good care of our family." As we drove away, the car filled with warmth and laughter, I knew, whatever lay ahead, we would face it together. Because family isn't about blood. It's about love. And ours was unbreakable.